Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Chalkboard Chats. My name is Henry, and on this channel, we talk all things teaching and everything in support of teachers. And today, we are going to discuss how to navigate difficult and challenging classes. I'm going to do a full-on workshop on this. I think I'm going to do this next week Tuesday, which is, let's see, it's still March. Where is my calendar? I don't have my calendar on my wall anymore. Let's see, next week Tuesday is March 26th. I'll leave a comment below with the specific and the details and stuff. But the topic is navigating challenging classes. Now, we are all quote unquote blessed and cursed with classes that can be very challenging. And I've had my fair share of challenges in the past. I'm now in education for the 10th year. Actually, this is last week or a week and a half ago was my 10th year anniversary. And I've been through all of the schools, all of the types of students, all of the classes, all of the materials, and also all of the challenges. And in this episode, I want to share with you the things that have worked for me, because for a long time, all I did was bang my head against the wall, being so frustrated by all of these challenges, being so incredibly exasperated that we have to deal with these things. And I have noticed that in the last, I think, 2 years, last year was also quite challenging, but in the last 2 years, I feel as if I'm barely faced by anything anymore. And not in a very, bitter kind of way, but more in a, oh, well, this is not a big deal because I've dealt and faced bigger challenges. Every obstacle, every problem, everything that I now come across doesn't stay with me for a long time. It used to ruin my whole day, or it used to ruin my whole week, where I still have the same classes. I have them twice a week, but then where the first class of the week would not go well, and then the whole week would be ruined because I was just still angry and frustrated that in the first place I had to deal with these issues. And I don't have that anymore. Any issue that I have gets resolved basically on the spot, or maximum at the end of class, until I put all of my stuff away, until I'm at the motorbike, where I take out my motorbike, I pay for the parking, and I leave, and then I just kind of forget what happened. Which is great. It's great. It's great. It's great. Except that I now have a lot of paperwork that I keep forgetting because they took away the prompt. So to forget about work in your free time, it's really, really good. But it makes me very reliant on prompts because I don't remember. I go home and I am very good at compartmentalizing. So I want to share with you some of the ways that have been really helpful for me, how to make it to the other side of frustration. So when you have, for example, a difficult class with difficult students, or you have challenging management, or you have just a disagreement with the material that you have to teach, how to get from the initial shock and anger of this situation to the other side where you can actually function through it. Now, for these ways to make it to the other side, it does not mean that we are actually don't have that problem anymore. The students can still be an absolute nightmare. Management can absolutely be difficult still to work with. We can still look at the space and think this is not great. So it is more about how to function with the problem and not how to make the problem go away. The problem still is there. It's not a problem anymore. It is just a fact of life now. So the first thing that we really have to understand is what makes a class challenging, or what makes a group of people difficult, quote unquote, difficult to work with. Well, the first thing is that we are the ones who have this opinion about the class. And the we is like an individual. It's not that all the teachers at all the whole school will agree with you. And it's an individual observation, I would say, an individual assessment, and it's a personal choice to use those words, I guess, because what for some teachers might be very challenging can be a piece of cake for other teachers. And it's very important to be gentle with yourself. Don't judge yourself too harshly for, designating this class as difficult, as challenging, because we're not getting anywhere with judgment. We are getting somewhere with understanding and compassion, and then with determination to do something about it. Now, when we have this idea of this is challenging, this is difficult, this is a nightmare class for, all I care, you call it a nightmare class. Um, we're going to dive deeper into this in the workshop, but what I did was list all the things that make it so difficult. And for me, if I look at my classes now, some of the classes are quite challenging. And it is different things for each class and also different things for each lesson that I teach. Sometimes I think I have enough space. Sometimes I think I don't have enough space. Same class, same amount of students, just a different day. Um, Sometimes I am very, very patient with quote unquote difficult students. And sometimes I don't have any patience, and I'm surprised myself too, where I'm like, whoa, I got very angry. So make sure that you give yourself some love when you are going through this exercise of really detailing what makes this thing so challenging, what makes this class so difficult. I divide them up into three categories. One is the students, one is the space, one is the materials. It can also be what makes this job challenging, but then we're including a lot of other people. So for this video and for this workshop also, I'm going to focus on just the classes. What makes these classes so difficult and so challenging? Now, when you are dividing up all the things, you can just start with a whole list of all the things. And they can be super tiny little petty things. They can be big problems that other teachers also have, doesn't really matter. What's important is that you get everything that is happening in your brain out on a piece of paper. That's step one. And it's already as if the burden is lessening. So you just list all the things that make it challenging. And then each item can fit basically into a category. So what I like to do is I like to look at all the students and I write down all the thoughts that I have about those students. If it's the students that make this class so challenging, what are their behaviors? What are they doing? What are they saying? And what do I want them to do? What do I want them to say? How do I think they should behave in this class? Now, you can do this with the students. You can also do this with the space. I've moved from the biggest classroom to one of the smaller ones, which also has like this standalone pillar in the middle. So the kids love to play hide and seek, and I don't like to play seek. So I found that very challenging, and I wrote down all the thoughts that I had on this space. I also wrote down what I think the company should have done instead, or what I want from the space instead, or how I would love to have a different classroom. So I write down all the problems and then all of my thoughts about it, how somebody else should solve this problem, for example. Same with the materials. I have had very frustrating classes because I don't agree with the materials. Some of the things are, I don't know, a little bit sexist, a little bit, I don't know, just weird things. And also, I think because I teach in Asia, they have so much, their focus is very much on education. So these kids go from school to school to school to school, and they eat their bigger meals during the break time of these schools. And I don't think some of them, I don't think they have a lot of time to like just be a kid. So that's something that I'm also I notice friction with me, that I don't agree with how we approach this, the timing of it, what we teach, when we teach it, and what we show what is important, and I don't really agree with it. So I make again a list of all the things that I think are wrong, should we do differently, etc. And then also make a list with all the things how I think what the solution is, how I think we should solve this, and what I think we should teach instead. Now, when you have all of this together, this is the most important step, because as you go through all of these things, you create immediately some distance, the distance between you and the piece of paper. And when it is not in you anymore, it's not something that you have to carry around with you in your brain, on your shoulders, feeling the pressure of it. And this can make such a difference. As soon as I realized that the challenge that I have with this class is that one student who has just a very difficult time staying close to his chair. And as soon as I realized that, I'm like, that's not a big deal. That's fine. I don't have to lose my mind around it. We don't have to make this a whole big learning thing. I can just continue. It does not have to be a big deal. If he doesn't, I have the rules on the board, and if he doesn't follow the rules, it's not a big deal. It's not a big problem. He knows the consequences. He's fine with the consequences, apparently. And I can just put that in perspective, as in, that's not a big deal. Most of the things that happen in class that make my classes so challenging are not a big deal when I really, really think about it. When I zoom out, when I look with a bit of perspective in like the grand scheme of things, when I zoom out onto the world and I see that this one class, these couple of hours, were very challenging because now all the things that are on my piece of paper, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I don't need to worry about that. That's not a big consequence. It's not a big deal. Most of the things 2 days later, everybody has forgotten. And by taking a step back, I all of a sudden feel like, oh, wait, I can just go back to being a teacher. I don't have to be this strict person who is trying to get all these kids to be obedient. I don't like it either way, but I don't have to. I can show up as a teacher. I don't have to be this person who, I don't have to strive for being the perfect teacher. No, I am already a teacher, and I can just teach. Every time I do these exercises, I'm like, oh, wait, I make it so difficult for myself. And with this perspective, it just helps me so much to step back into what I'm here to do in the first place, which is just teach. I'm here just teaching a language. And every time I look at these classes, I'm like, oh, these are so challenging to navigate. I'm onto myself. I'm like, no, 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 no. There are these 1, 2, 3 details that I just don't agree with that make it quote unquote challenging. No, I can just teach something that they don't understand. The school wants me to teach it. I'll teach it. It's not a big problem. Not a big deal. And all of a sudden I'm like, I'm free. I'm free to just teach. Now, if you're not a teacher, this might be a very weird concept, but if you're a teacher, I really hope that you take this on, you try this exercise. All you have to do is write down all the things that you have an issue with, write it down. Also, write down your solution. Now, whether or not you do it, whether or not you go out and try to change the world, almost isn't really important, because as soon as you wrote it down and you put it outside of yourself, as long as the weight and the intenseness of the frustration and the hopelessness or the exasperation, all the intensity of those emotions, when they kind of dissipate, all of a sudden you're like, okay, now I'm free. I can solve all these problems, or not. I can work with it. I can work my way around it. I had this last year, not with the classes, but with management. And all of a sudden, I got to the point where if I survive this management, then I've had the worst of management that I can imagine. Then I can survive any of the other quote unquote difficult managers because I've made it through. I've learned so much with this challenging management that the rest is now easy. I'm like, it's not a fun lesson to learn, but now that I've learned it, I'm like, thank God. Thank God I made it through that time because now I've learned so much. Now with all this, also the students, every time I see some of the students who are really, really on a spectrum, don't know what spectrum, really know. I'm not a professional in that. So I have no idea, but they are on a spectrum. And every time I get back to myself and I think, I just wish they would stay close to their chair, or I wish they would not touch my stuff. I'm like, wait a second. These are all the things that I want life to be different, but this is what life is giving me right now, and it doesn't need to be a big deal. It's totally fine. I can work around it, I can work through it. I don't have to control it, I don't have to steer it in any other direction. This is what life gave me, and I can work with it. And I just wish this for everybody. When you're having challenging classes, how to navigate this, it makes such a difference because by the end of the week, I don't really remember what happened in the beginning of the week. And I now have some other issues that I want to address, but I want to address them with like a sense of curiosity and like, oh, let's see what happens. If it doesn't go well, I already had the first situation where it wasn't going well in the first place. So now, put my water bottle out of reach. Now that I am without frustration and exasperation, now I'm like, all right, so here is the problem, and here I think I have a solution. Let's try it. If all else fails, that is fine. If it works, that's great. And I have this whole different relationship with my work. I highly, highly, highly recommend this for everybody. So that is what I have for you today on video. If you would like to join this workshop, it is next week. What did I say? March 26th. I'll leave the link below. The workshop is free, but if you get a ticket online, then you also get like the Zoom login and all the details. So have a look. It is a workshop where you learn this process, but in more detail. And we're actually going to go through it step by step. And then if there's enough time at the end, I'm going to ask some of you to come on live, tell me about the situation, and we'll work through it together. All right. I hope you join me next week. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.